Hi people, and hello my Chili Con Carnage crew. It's Chili here from Live Listener Raised, and you know it, this is the episode of the podcast where we're going to be selecting 3 bands, and we're going to make you decide which ones are going to be on this list for Erased, which one you're going to see live once, and which one you're going to listen to for the rest of your life. I'm joined by Tom, the Green Man. How are you, Tom?
Actually, yeah, all good here, all ready to be, I'm sure, given a very difficult choice.
Oh, yes. And if you haven't checked out the episode before, make sure to check it out. Side A, where Tom's list is, it's just such a painful list. I'm just the horror, the PTSD has come back to me.
Yeah, still recovering from the experience myself.
We managed to do it, both of us. We overcame the odds. We came to a decision. You guys will have to watch it if you haven't already, but this is side B. This is now my list. And I'm hoping, Tom, this list will be a little bit painful for you.
We'll see. We shall see, yeah.
Yeah, like they say, misery loves company with that first list, man. Alright, man. So with this list, I had a feeling that you might enjoy a bit of the progressive area. I thought I'd bring it into a bit of progressive territory with the 3 following artists. Dream Theater, of course. Porcupine Tree. And and Opeth.
Ooh, God. That's nasty, that is.
It is a nasty progressive metal list.
Oh, I'm going to have to really think about that. Yeah. That's going to be interesting. Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting list. For progressive metal fans just sitting there going, nah! I could imagine that one just going on there. So which band would you like to start on?
Which band should we start on? We start on Opeth. Let's start on Opeth.
Oh, please do. Yes. So, Opeth, which I was also just watching a documentary on them just before we joined on the video call, because obviously they got some ties we'll bring into that. But they're an interesting band, aren't they? Very intriguing. What's your favourite album out of the Opeth catalogue? I guess you could say is a hard one to say.
Yeah, I've kind of changed my mind on this a few times as well. I think I often go. I think I've said Still Life most often when people ask me my favourite Opeth album. But I sometimes say Ghost Reveries.
That's a big album by them as well.
Yeah, a lot of people would obviously say Blackwater Park. Yeah, and I love that album, but I don't know what it is. It's just I kind of love it, but it's not quite for me. I just don't go back to it as much as the other 2 I mentioned, Still Life and Ghost Reveries.
Do you reckon they picked that just purely because of the Leper Affinity? And that would probably be about it.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of great stuff on there. You got the title track as well, and that's really, really great. But I don't. Drapery Falls as well. It's to be honest, it's a terrific album. I don't want to downplay Blackwater Park.
No,
fans will be after me. Will be after me. But I just do find I go back to those other 2 a bit more often, to be honest.
Fair.
Yeah, interestingly. It's interesting we got the Porcupine Tree connection here because Opeth and Michael Ackerfeld and Stephen Wilson very good friends. So that brings that into the equation here as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, Opeth are bands with quite an evolution over time, aren't they? They started quite heavy, progressive, melodic death sort of metal with their early albums, Orchid, Morning Rise. But then they've gone down to more prog rock, psychedelic 70s rock stuff since about Heritage. that's where there was the biggest change, and Heritage, therefore, lots of the death metal side of the Opeth fan base crying out in anger at Heritage, going, Heritage, it's heresy. Um, I sort of see, because the thing is, I do get some of that though, because Michael Ackerfeldt's growls are a thing to be reckoned with. They are the strongest harsh vocals in all of metal for me, and to lose that, to not have that anymore, you can see why some fans would be a bit. I miss those growls so much. You can get it when you really love someone's voice or their vocal style, and they change it. It does. But the thing is, for me, is that he also does have great cleans. His clean singing is really underrated. Well, not underrated, but I think people love his growls so much they don't always recognise the guy's a damn good singer.
It's like a Corey Taylor almost, with his dual ability to do clean and unclean vocals.
Yeah, and both to a high standard as well.
And I mean, I can understand where you're going for. Coming from when you're saying like, his harsh vocals and everyone's crying out because he's one of the best. It's almost like Foo Fighters being with Dave Grohl as not a drummer. All of a sudden we're losing one of the best drummers in the world, but at the same time it's like, but he's writing this other cool shit too. Come listen to that. I think, did you do a video recently on Heritage?
Oh, I don't think so. No. I've done an Opeth ranking. I did a video where I talked about maybe Encarta Venenum a bit, but I think that must have been a top list, 10, 20 list of a year, actually, when I talked about that album. I think I've spoken about them in pockets on the channel, but not at length.
There was some video I saw, and they were talking about Heritage, obviously being its divisive line by the fan base, and they're just saying, is it as bad as what people say it is? And if I'm being straight up, Opeth is not a band I'm hugely into. I like a lot of their tracks, and I find them interesting because there's the progressive, softer side of them, and then there's the black metal, screaming side of them. Yep. You could almost have two different, playlists of Opeth, and you could swear they're two different bands. It's just so weird. And someone said, "Oh yeah, Heritage, pretty good album. Come back, listen to it." So I played it, and I'm like, "Damn, this is actually really cool. I like it. This is to my style. It's a good album." Sorceress, I think, was the other one as well.
That's good.
Yeah, there's some really there's some albums in the more recent times that I've listened to. But when I compare it to, actually, funny story here, but the very first album I bought of theirs was Watershed, and I picked it up at a gas station for $2.
Oh, wow. That's a good deal.
Yeah. I'm like, I know of this band, and I'm not going to pass up a $2 CD. I will buy an Opeth album today. And that was my first taste. And I remember playing the very first, Coil is that little intro 3-minute piece, and next second, Air Apparent. And I'm like, what is this? My ears weren't ready for the sonical assault that was landing upon me. But they're a band that if I'm going to be honest here, the earlier stuff is very hard to listen to. The very black metal, side of things. Like, what do you think about when you're listening to Opeth early stuff, I should say?
Oh, I really enjoy it. I think they've got, and I think even their early albums, they do mix with this sort of folky acoustic sound sometimes with that really harsh, heavy, like you say, sort of more black metal, death metal style that they have. And it just works. It's like there's some quite sharp transitions that in Still Life, in My Arms Your Hearse as well. I think like there are transitions where, but it sort of works. And it's because they're just really talented, I think, and they have that ability to switch up tempos and styles with the drop of a hat, and it's just crazy, really, that they can do that and do it so well. A lot of bands probably try to be like Opeth, but it just doesn't happen.
No, man. That's definitely Arena Core could learn a thing or two.
It's a bit of jazz as well. They have like in Sorceress and albums like that, pretty jazzy, aren't they? But what is the song I'm thinking about now? Where I think it's one of the songs of Still Life where it's just amazing. I think it might be Godhead's Lament, where it
Okay.
goes from a really heavy section with sort of the power chords and everything,
Mm-mm.
and then it drops suddenly into this like really jazzy kind of um,
Yeah.
like section where they just totally change the arrangement, but it works, and it's just like, how on earth have they done that? I mean, you see other bands like Between the Buried and Me do that a lot, actually.
Oh yes.
Yeah, they do that a lot with transitions.
Mm.
But yeah, Opeth are one of the masters for me of the transition from different styles. Yeah,
Yeah.
and still making it work in the song, which is an art form, you know.
Yeah, the transitions are just absolutely phenomenal. You raise a good point. Like the heaviness sections where it just comes out of this brutally fast tempo, and next second it'll just be sudden stop, acoustic playing, and softly spoken part, and then
Yeah.
back into it, and you're like, oh my gosh, what? And they've mastered that ability to do such an effort. It's incredible. Very few
Yeah,
bands can pull off what they do so seamlessly, almost.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, like Between the
Yeah,
Buried and Me, I guess. Yeah, they do it quite well,
to be,
actually.
to be honest, yeah, yeah. I mean, I struggle to say much negative about Opeth. I really do. I think, if anything, some of their early work, like Orchid, was a little bit lacking in direction.
Mm.
And I find that I do miss some of the bite in their later albums that they had in their earlier albums, despite their albums being perfectly good
Mm.
progressive rock albums. I think because I'm not one of those fans that obsesses about his harsh vocals, but I
Yeah.
do miss them a bit. Um, and I think sometimes that there would be no harm in them going back to that if they wanted to. And but I'm not sure we're going to get that. Yeah, they're just a really legendary band. Again, a bit like the bands we were talking about on the other episode,
Mm.
trailblazers. They really are trailblazers for
Yeah.
prog. Yeah,
When it comes to prog
modern
metal in
modern metal.
particular.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and they got a great. They had an interesting transition. Sorry, not transition. What was the word I was trying to think of? Production quality, I guess, changed with Blackwater Park,
mm,
um, which saw Stephen Wilson being brought in on that
yeah,
record,
yeah.
and really changed it up when you compare it to their earlier stuff, in particular the '90s material, to Blackwater Park.
Yeah, yeah, it just had a very polished sound in there. It was all produced extremely well, as you'd expect from Stephen Wilson. I think, like,
Mm,
very clean. It's one of those things that's kind of difficult to describe, isn't it? It's super clean production, but you still got the heaviness coming through on the
yeah.
album. Um, Sometimes I worry when production is too perfect in metal that you lose just a bit of the punch and the rawness of the guitars and the drums that you want, actually.
Mm,
Um, so you don't want overly processed stuff sometimes with metal. You want it to hit you, but the way that album is produced is really good because it's just takes out some of the kind of some of the stuff you don't want, but it still manages to make it a great final product.
yeah, yeah. It kind of reminds me, actually, sorry, of someone I was interviewing before, and they were talking about listening to black metal. My question was, what do you prefer, record, CD, or streaming? And he goes, tapes. I'm like,
Yeah,
what? He goes, yeah, tapes for black metal, that sound.
yeah,
And I'm like, man,
just like it's in your room,
yeah.
blasting away at you in your room. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, man, I only ever owned one tape, and that was Green Day's Nimrod. So I got no comparison for that. I was like, okay, that question caught me off. Well, sorry, the answer caught me off guard. But I can imagine some people who, when in particular Opeth fans, probably did have a few of theirs on cassette and just like going, yeah, man, that's how it's listed. Yeah, that's it. But no, I mean, still, they didn't. It wasn't over polished to the point where it lost any
yeah,
gruff. I guess it still
yeah,
is punchy. It's
yeah,
still weighty, all behind it, I
yeah,
should say. So yeah, this is perfectly It's mint record.
Yeah.
Man, oh, I was listening to it actually just earlier today, and you forget how hard Leper Affinity hits you sometimes.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great song.
It's such a good track. I can't think of the other one. Is it
I
Pain
haven't
of...
actually listened to an Opeth album in full for a little while, so you've got me thinking. Got to do that.
You're gonna go back to it. It's like, damn,
Go back
I
to
remember
yeah.
this one. Window Pane. That was the other track I was just thinking of.
Oh, that Damnation album, like Deliverance Damnation, is those two albums. I absolutely love those. Yeah. Oh man, I was thinking I haven't mentioned those yet. I have to mention those because
There we go.
they're like they're like the two sides of Opeth, but separated into the two different albums. Because Deliverance is the really aggressive, heavy side of the band. Damnation is the beautiful, mellow, more song focused, I would say, side of the band. And it's the two contrasts working well as separate albums. And yeah, two of my favorite albums as it happens.
It's like Jekyll and Hyde situation going on with the band.
That's exactly. I was thinking that was in the back of my mind. It just wasn't coming to the front of my tired brain.
For those of you, I had to wake up Tom really early for this episode, people. So don't cut him some slack, all right? Cut him some slack. Man, I forget. Sorry about Damnation. That is one of the albums, actually, when it comes to their 2000s material, I probably have played that very little, or much more less than I should have, is my answer. And I mean, Window Pane, damn. Yeah. I like you, I'm going to be playing their full album, I reckon, after this, because it's something I just haven't listened to in quite a while, and I need to go back and listen to it now. I'm thinking about it. Because, yeah, I mean, I was listening to Blackwater Park before, and I think the other one was Watershed as well. And while they're good tracks, it was a little bit hard for me to listen to as a full album experience. Like, you got to be in the right mindset, at least from where I was coming from, I guess. But I don't know, get yourself hyped up in the right situation. Talking to myself here, that's all. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah. Listen to Damnation. But a very unlikely, yeah.
I mean, you maybe have to be in a certain mood to listen to Damnation because it's very mellow. Got to be in that moment where you want something a bit more different, a bit mellower.
Yeah, that's true, I guess, yeah. But yeah, it's very interesting stuff when it comes to, like, oh, God. Yeah, you got like the acoustic section, then you got, yeah, there's so many Jekyll and Hydes amongst the band. It's like, how are they doing this?
Yeah.
They do so well. Such a good band. Oh, gosh. Just goosebumps thinking about that one now. Which band would you like to, I mean, like, it's interesting. Sorry, now I just remembered the point. I think I'm getting the same brain as you at the moment. I was just talking about the at the beginning of this, the interview that they had with Michael and discovering Porcupine Tree, and he was saying how back in like 1995, I think he said the guitarist for Catatonic came up to him and was like, "Hey, you got to listen to this band," and gave him a CD, and it was a Porcupine Tree CD, The Sky Moves Sideways. And he goes, I loved them ever since. We just listened to all their material, played it on through, and eventually he found out that Steve Wilson was a big fan of Opeth, and they invited him over because they were writing their new album, Blackwater Park, and they're like, oh, why don't you come in and produce it? It's like, yeah, right, sweet, I'll do it. And, well, shit, like they say, the rest is history. The guys are like ultimate friendship all of a sudden, best buddies. And it's kind of interesting how much... do you reckon because of that interaction, and I guess Stephen being in the producer's booth, they've had that effect on them where Opeth has become a more progressive sound? They've quietened down, if you will.
I think so. I think it's been said a lot, actually, that they influenced each other and then each other's music.
Yes.
Because Opeth got a bit more prog rock and a bit more atmospheric in a way. atmospheric's maybe not the right words as such, but they went more in a direction which was starting to sound a bit more like Porcupine Tree stuff, and then Porcupine Tree got a bit heavier.
Yeah.
You know, listen to Deadwing, and it's like, whoa,
Yeah,
what's happened here?
There's a weird transition here, and I missed
heaviest,
something.
But I mean, we're going to talk about Porcupine Tree probably in a minute, aren't we? But yeah, the Deadwing album is it's like you hear the Opeth effects on that album, and a little bit on In Absentia as well.
Yeah, In Absentia is also a really good one. I mean, like, you know, especially when it comes to like, this is what I wanted. This is why I wanted to talk about these two bands, is because they got such a nice intermixing ability within them, and they do get a lot of parallels drawn between the both of them because of the way that they seem to affect, and whether or not they got influences from each other because of the recording processes and all that stuff involved, who knows? Probably yes, but well, I guess what they've written now is what they've written. But you're right, Deadwing is such a loud album compared to, you know, the albums before that came before it, Up the Downstairs and all that kind of stuff. Oh
yeah, it's pretty different.
I gotta say, Porcupine. My first taste into Porcupine Tree was the Sky Moving Sideways. That was my first CD I got of theirs, because the I can't remember which reviewer said it. It was like, oh, this is a band that is like Pink Floyd, and I was heavily into Pink Floyd phase at the time, and I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna go listen to this Pink Floyd sounding band. Sure enough, the album is very much like a Pink Floyd version. It's like it's like Porcupine Tree's "Wish You Were Here," isn't it? Yeah, it's got that long track and the acoustic piece in there. And it's a really good album. I love that album.
Yeah, that's a really good one, actually. Yeah. Great bass work in that Sky Move Sideways. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Colin.
He rejoined the band for the recent album, didn't he? He was off for a little while, but then I think he came back for the recent one, didn't he?
Yes, I think so. I'll stand corrected, I'm sure, if I'm wrong about that one. But yeah, I think he did.
Yeah.
What a great album as well.
Oh God, yeah.
The one they put out.
Closure Continuum.
Yeah. That was almost in my top. Yeah, that was my number 5 for last year. And my albums of the year list, yeah.
I'm sure it made my top 10. I just couldn't recall right now. No, they did. They definitely did. Because it was I think that year was like a bit slow, and I remember I was like, oh man, Porcupine Tree. It was such an incredible album, and of course, it's going to get one of the spots. I just can't remember where it was in the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 5th as well. I can't recall now. But yeah, like, sorry, Sky Moving Sideways was my first taste into them, and because of the Pink Floyd influence. But then you compare it to Deadwing, Fear of a Blank Planet, all that stuff moving forward, and it's suddenly getting heavier and heavier and heavier, especially Fear of a Blank Planet. Damn, that is like peak Opeth influence, surely. You know, It was such a good album, that one as well. One of the last ones to come out on Spotify. I couldn't listen to it for ages, and I couldn't find my CD either, and I'm like, where is it? But yeah, what was your how did you stumble across Porcupine Tree, I should say?
I think this was about the time Deadwing came out, 2005, 2006-ish. I was kind of reaching the end of university, and I also think my brother-in-law was a big fan of them as well. So somehow their name got to me, and you know, similarly to you, I think someone said if you like Pink Floyd, probably like them. But I think I might have had to discover them by chance on YouTube at some point when they came up in recommendations.
Okay.
And Deadwing was the album, and it was interesting because I heard one song that was. That sort of super heavy, which might have been the title track, and then there's Shallow as well, which is another heavy track on that album.
Yeah.
Then that's the name of the track, Lazarus. Which is
Lazarus, yeah.
very different. But then I was like, this is really good. And from that point on, I discovered a bit more about them. It's interesting because I did in the Dark Horse Disc series I did on my channel last year with Hector and John. We talked about no, it was actually no, I did an episode on Porcupine Tree with Mary Loves Music.
Oh yeah.
And we talked about, as part of that same series, and we talked about Lightbulb Sun. And I remember saying to her how I kind of started on Deadwing and discovered them sort of. They took a while to discover a lot of their other albums besides their sort of three, what I would call their three kind of major ones, which are Deadwing, Fear of a Blank Planet, and In Absentia.
Okay.
So I kind of, those three albums were the ones I really got into, but I never actually explored them until a few years later properly. Yeah.
It's interesting that you approached him from that direction. For me, it was like the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
I've come at it from the Pink Floyd side of it, obviously. Then I've gone stepping around that 90s era, so I've gone to Signify, Staircase.
Yeah, I love Signify. I don't know what. That I really like that album. It's not one of their sort of.
Yeah,
more,
not many people talk about it, but it is kind of highly regarded amongst the fan base. It's an odd. Well, you know what? Actually, you know one that gets completely overshadowed that I thoroughly enjoy is Voyage 34. Like, it is such a good track. It's peak progressive movement. 4 tracks talking about this person having their 34th trip on, I think it was LSD, wasn't it? Yeah, and occasional recordings from the people behind it. And it's it's an extremely psychedelic piece. Released just around the time of Lightbulb Sun as well, I believe. But then I got into the other ones like Metanoia, which was a jam album, which was a very weird jam album. Still good, but yeah, it's we can completely ignore On the Sunday of Life. That thing can get that thing can burn.
It was okay, but yeah, it wasn't not their best, I would say, for sure.
A waste of. I got the special edition version of that. That was $30, and that was a waste. I got it to fulfill my, my back catalogue
collection. Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah.
Oh God, why did I bother? And I'm radioactive toy. But it should be in this high pitch. It's just. It's like the Chipmunks were singing that track, Alvin and the Chipmunks. But yeah, okay. So I've listened to all their early stuff, and then I eventually, I think Fear of a Blank Planet came out. So that was about 2006, 2007 is when I discovered them, and I remember buying the album and going, "What the hell? Where Sky Moves Sideways? Fear of Blank Planet? What?" Because I didn't buy the in-between albums. I didn't get In Absentia.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I didn't get Deadwing. I got none of them. I didn't get Stupid Dream or Lightbulb Sun. I just went straight off the deep end and bought the newest album. And, I mean, I loved it. No ifs, and or buts. I thoroughly enjoyed Fear of Blank Planet. I think it's one of their best albums. But, wow, what a weird album. To go from, listening to this weird Pink Floyd-esque psychedelic stuff, Voyage 34, to pure heaviness that goes for 17 minutes.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? What did you make of Stupid Dream and Lightbulb Sun when you got to those?
Oh, so Stupid Dream, I kind of still feel on the fence about.
Yeah,
it's one of the last albums I listened to from them. I barely play it, to be honest. I mean, I'm just going to go over the tracks here, and I don't think I know. What is it? Piano Lessons? No, Pure Narcotic. I know of that one. Yeah, but other than that, it's not a bad album. It's just not a memorable album. It's just a record that's out there in the Porcupine Tree, catalog, and it just wasn't really that good. Especially when you got the next year comes out Lightbulb Sun, and that is a really good album, I thought. Especially when you go like Russia on Ice. I think that's it's a really good track. She Moves On, 4 Chords That Made a Million. It's an interesting track. It's a very tongue-in-cheek kind of song, but
yeah.
But I really loved Light Bulb Sun. I thought it was a really cool record.
I love that album.
I think it gets overlooked a lot by, around that time because of In Absentia, Deadwing, and so forth.
So it's before those, yeah.
Yeah, it's like just on the cuff of them, but it deserves a higher spot, I reckon, in the list. It's a really good album. It's this weird, it's that transition just before, they go off into In Absentia. Which, fun fact, I only listened to In Absentia for the first time only about 4 years ago.
Oh, I think this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, there's so many great bands with so many discographies. There is going to be well-known bands that you've still not listened to their whole discographies. I mean, I've got a few that I could say.
Yeah, you're not going to listen to everything the Rolling Stones ever put out.
You just can't listen to absolutely everything, yeah. It's just impossible.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely a difficult task to achieve. But, yeah, and when I listened to In Absentia, I'm like, I was blown away. That's such a good album, in Absentia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I listened to Trains. I definitely saw that performed live, actually. That was their encore song. They came back out for an encore and they performed Trains. And I forgot who the drummer was, but he got 2 drumsticks and his towel, and he's holding it like this on the stage. And then he did this trick where he pulled the drumsticks out secretly, and then he released the towel like that, and it's like the drumsticks were gone. And I'm like, what? A weird little magic trick to hear while Trains plays out, which is I love Trains. It's like this highly emotionally charged acoustic track, and I love that track. That was one of the first Porcupine Tree songs I heard. I acquired it somehow just by itself, and obviously that was the only track I had heard from In Absentia before I ended up playing. I think I found out Blackest Eyes, which is another good track as well. But pretty much ever since they did the production with Opeth, it just got heavier and heavier, and I kind of feel like there's a 2-pronged reason for it as well, because if you can recall, Stephen Wilson went on the attack against Greta Van Fleet recently, calling them out because they're just this Led Zeppelin tribute band, he pretty much said.
Right, yeah. I don't really know Greta Van Fleet very well, so yeah, no, it's all. Yeah.
They pretty much are a Led Zeppelin tribute band, but they're really good. They're really cool. I like them. It's interesting music. It's very much if you like Led Zeppelin, you're gonna like Greta Van Fleet. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
But yeah, if you listen to it, it's a bit, I guess, derogative of Led Zeppelin. Anyway. So he called out Greta Van Fleet and said, you guys are pretty much nothing but a tribute band. And I kind of get the feeling that he said that because back in the day, in the 90s, he was called out for being nothing but a Pink Floyd tribute band. And because of those comments, he started writing these other tracks that were a bit more influenced for the music at the time. And like we said before, he loved Opeth. He obviously knew Opeth before meeting and producing their record. So he was bringing these influences in slowly over time. I think just one of these people coming out and saying you're a Pink Floyd tribute band, he goes, I realised I didn't want to be that person.
Yeah.
I didn't want that.
It's interesting that it's a gradual change with Porcupine Tree, because In Absentia is not very heavy, but it starts to ramp up a bit of rockiness in it, doesn't it? And then you get to Deadwing, and that's where you're like, this is actually kind of metal now.
Oh yeah.
With some pretty ferocious heavy stuff going on in lots of those tracks, and then by the time you, as you say, you get to Fear of a Blank Planet, they've kind of fully transitioned into prog metal. But then by The Incident, I think they go back a little bit into more psychedelic experimentation stuff.
Well, that was a concept album as well.
Yeah, the 2009 one, I think. Was it 2009? And then obviously the hiatus before they came back last year and put out, yeah, I mean, probably one of my favorite albums from them because I'm still loving that album. So
It's
yeah.
very good. I got to give a quick shout out as well to two things. Stephen Wilson's solo career. Holy crap! As
Oh,
his solo career is almost as colourful as Porcupine Tree,
yeah.
and so much good stuff like Raven Wing and
Oh, yeah.
um, oh my god, 4.5 or whatever it was. Really good stuff. But
Mm.
he also worked very briefly on this album that I really enjoy, and it's called "The Ghosts of Pip Rat." I think he appeared on one track out of that album, but basically it's got. I think didn't you cover this maybe, or maybe I'm
Is
wrong.
that Stephen Rothery's album?
Yes, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had the three Steves on
I
there.
haven't. Yeah, I haven't spoken about. I've spoken about Stephen Rothery a few times on Green Man. He's one of my all-time favorite guitarists, and he's very influential on my guitar playing. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I think it was the track "Old Man of the Sea" from the Ghosts of Pip Rat, which had like Steve Rothery and Stephen Wilson, and it
you
had
see,
some other
I've
Steve.
listened to that album. That passed me by that Stephen Wilson was involved in that. I think I just checked out the album once or
Oh
twice.
yeah, it's a very minute detail because it's like an instrumental
Yeah.
album. It's just this very ambient, ambient guitar
Mm.
album. And I didn't know it until I don't even know how I stumbled across this album, but beautiful album by Stephen Rothery, and then I see Stephen Wilson's name attached to it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Didn't know that. Didn't really hear that either. There's another because there's a track and it's got three Stevens on it. I've forgotten who the third one was, but yeah, if you're looking over the list of who did what, there's like three Stevens there at one point. It's a really weird one, but yeah, like everything he does is incredible. His production, I mean, even reproducing Yes albums, King Crimson, all this other stuff that he does in the studio. It He's one of the most under what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like his name's not as much of a household name as it should be. And it's a shame, He deserves so much more. He's such an incredibly talented musician. I can't sing his praises highly enough. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, the recent album of
He
theirs.
has Stephen Wilson. He has just a way of knowing what serves his. He knows his music so well, doesn't he? I
Oh
think
yeah.
he just has a way of knowing what serves the songs the best.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he's not only a great instrumentalist or musician, but he kind of has a creative mastermind, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that down pat. He's just got the knack. He's always in that vibe and
Music, just
it.
a music mogul.
Oh yeah. He's born for the musical world, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He made that
Yeah.
apparent when he was singing the line "Born in '67, year of Sergeant Pepper," and "Are you
Yeah.
experienced?"
Mm.
I'll always remember that line. Great musician. So the last one, we've got the Mammoth Band here. When it comes to progressive metal bands, when you say progressive metal, I don't think you could talk about any other band other than Dream Theater, eh?
Yeah, this is the thing, and this is what is going to make this really difficult because their Dream Theater is so influential, aren't they?
Oh,
Yeah, big discography with sometimes 2.5 hour long albums.
and it might include 3 tracks.
Yeah,
Oh god, yes. It's nuts. What are they
I,
doing?
I,
Like every 3 years they put an album out? It's crazy.
yeah, they're very prolific, I think is the word, Dream Theater. And, I think despite some of their albums for me being just far too long, I still think that they usually have at least, some songs on the album that I kind of still want to go back to. So
Yeah.
even with The Astonishing, which is the album I spoke about on the Chill Dudes on a Couch channel when they're
was
in the
it?
Is It That Bad series, and I was the only one to save it.
Oh yeah, you're
I
a braver
very
man than
controversially
me.
saved The Astonishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saved it just because it kind of keeps bringing me back to it a bit and wanting to hear a song on there again. So I was like, can I really throw it away? And I thought, well, maybe not. So yeah, I ended up saving it. But it's like it's one of those albums. It is a real. If you try and listen to the whole thing, it's
Yeah, nah, I can't do it, man. Because that's what I was going
sort
to
of
ask. You
opera.
guys, I knew you covered a Dream Theater album. I just wasn't sure if it was Fallen into Infinity or The Astonishing.
Yeah, I think it was the we spoke about Train of Thought as well on Dark Horse Discs too.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good
Yeah,
album. I loved
that's a
that
really good
album.
album. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird how much it doesn't get spoken. It's like, what is it, the heaviest Dream Theater album that you'll listen to, but it's squished between, Metropolis, 6 Degrees of Separation, and then Octavarium. So it gets overshadowed.
Yeah.
But it also kind of doesn't have a highly memorable song like those albums, I guess. It's got solid tracks, but anyway, I loved it. I loved that album. I loved it. Can't speak highly enough of it.
Yeah, I mean Dream Theater. Yeah, they've got. I think maybe they haven't sort of evolved a huge amount, but I would say out of the other bands we were discussing, like Opeth
Opeth.
and Porcupine Tree, have both had like their evolutions, and they're quite clear evolutions. With Dream Theater, I would say maybe slightly less so, but there are still some changes the bands have obviously had over time, where they've sometimes switched up and gone a bit more heavy, like with Train of Thought, and then other albums where they have just gone full ballad, like with The Astonishing.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No, you're right
and
there. Yeah.
yeah,
It's weird, because obviously you go through the first album, When Dream and Day Unite, which is limited, I think, due to the production, mostly. Some decent tracks, but mostly
yeah,
production hampers the quality of that one. And then they changed, I think they had the change of singers around that time, didn't they? And Images and Words comes out, and it's this phenomenal album. And it's
yeah.
almost like,
Thanks.
okay, we got the formula going, and that's it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Images and Words onwards, pretty strong period for them, I think. I think they've had sort of, the 90s and 2000s for me is their ultimate like best stuff, I think, on the whole.
Oh, yeah.
I think the 2010s, and nothing against, a lot of people state that it's Mike Portnoy leaving and Mangini coming in on the drums. That's the reason why. But I don't know about that. I think there's still some really good stuff in the 2010s, but just slightly less so as a period of time, as an era. I sort of see them in those kind of three eras to me, like the 90s,
Yeah.
then the 2000s and 2010s. Images and Words is a classic. Funnily enough, a classic that I don't actually
You don't come
love
back?
that much for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, I find it like it's got some memorable songs on there, but there's
But it's got
just like
Pull Me
I don't know,
Under.
Pull Me Under's good, but yeah, the album doesn't really just do it for me much. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's their classic, I guess. But yeah, it's never really done a lot for me. I really like Awake a lot. That's one of my favorite albums from them. Falling into Infinity is not bad. I think the album gets a little bit of dislike, but
Really?
um,
Wow.
yeah, I think it does. I say that. That's just me watching lots of other YouTube channels where it ends up lower down, in the rankings and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of it was a little bit more had a bit more of a 90s alternative rock style to that album, I think.
Yeah, they were kind of
It's-
going for something, weren't they?
Yeah,
Hollow Years and stuff like that. Yeah, some tracks there that aren't bad, but like they were going for that new 90s alternative rockish sound, and it just kind of wasn't working for them.
yeah.
The,
They're sort of Colossus for me. Their masterpiece is probably Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory,
oh, yeah.
that you've already mentioned. And now that's an example of a long album that is perfectly fine as it is a long album.
Yeah,
Dream
that's
Theater
true.
are a bit guilty of lots of long albums, like some of the aforementioned, where they just jam out for far too long, and it's just like, please stop, or they do too many of the same sorts of songs.
Yeah.
Whereas with Scenes from a Memory is like the very best of their, I think, their versatility as a band, their skills, but bringing them down to a concept, to a story, also making it quite memorable. You know, there's lots of songs on that album that stick with you, aren't there? I think. And Scenes from a Memory is one of my all-time favorite albums, without any doubt at all. It's just, I think it's a really great album.
It's a toss-up for me because, yes, that is such a gargantuan effort.
Yeah.
And I've heard it being called probably the best prog rock, and I mean rock, not metal, prog rock album out there, better than even Dark Side of the Moon and a few others. I've heard it being called as such.
Oh, yeah,
that's a big call.
I'm not sure. Now, it's one of my favourite all-time albums, but Dark Side of the Moon better than that? Oh, that's a tricky one to call.
That's a big call, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Anyway, look, that's someone else's opinion. But for me, obviously, yes, Metropolis Part 2. But on par is the track of Change of Seasons.
Oh, yeah, fair point. Yeah.
And it is such a...
Wow.
It's such a... oh, God, it's just the craftsmanship involved in this one song. And I made the comparison of this song to the Weezer Seasons albums. You remember how those ones came out? Because I'm thinking, okay, Weezer, yeah, that's going to be interesting that they're trying something different. And I kind of jumped to the conclusion it would be that kind of effort. And instead it turned out to be a hot pile of garbage. And I'm like, Dream Theater, people, this is how you do it in under 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And to perfection. It's, like, if you haven't heard it, it's like the tales of life and death of a man told in 25 minutes. Musically and lyrically, it's bang. It's so good. Such a good album, that one. Actually, funny, Awake was also my first album that we got from Dream Theater. And my brother found it in the street. So this little burnt CD, Dream Theater, Awake, and written on each side of the little...
worked.
Yeah, and it worked. It was like
Yeah.
really badly scratched, and we're like, this is not going to work. Put it in the CD player of the computer. You know, and we're
See, if it was Gajira, you wouldn't be able to tell whether or not it was with that sound. Yeah.
This one's skipping.
Yeah.
But no, we had Awake, and I remember putting it in, and there was this instant thing because I was a massive Metallica fan. My brother and a few of my friends were Dream Theater fans, and there was always the comparison: which one's better, Metallica or Dream Theater? And I know, kid, we were young. What can we say?
Two very different bands.
Oh, they're very different. Now I'm thinking about it, but no, Metallica's better because Metallica, you know, very different, and even like their live stuff, live at Budokan, the around the Train of Thought, Octavarium era, even Systematic Chaos. It doesn't get mentioned as much.
It's a good album, yeah.
But it's still a good one.
I think I like the tracks on Systematic Chaos that start the album and end the album. The first track and the last track. There's like a part 1 and part 2, isn't there? I can't remember the name of it now off the top of my head.
In the Presence of Enemies.
Enemies, that's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good track. Yeah, Forsaken. Prophets of War is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good too.
Yeah. Like it's a lot of an album that gets overshadowed. And
the 2000s albums are just a bunch of. I mean, we did Train of Thought as Dark Horse discs, but the 2000s albums are all kind of dark horses because they fall after their classics era.
Yeah.
But you've got Train of Thought. I mean, Octavarium. You've mentioned Systematic Chaos.
We haven't even mentioned the other one, the 6 Degrees of Inner
Turbulence, which actually is one I don't really gravitate towards much, but it's to be fair, that's a good album.
I only listened to that one again like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I was like, where was this hidden? I after years of listening to subpar Dream Theater albums, I got frustrated and went back to the catalogue. And I'm like, oh, 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. I haven't played this album yet. And there's the 46-minute ending track at the very end. And before that, you've got like these other 12-minute long tracks. I'm like, The Glass Prison. Oh, The Great Debate.
Yeah.
How did I miss that? Oh, I don't know. But, I mean, the other one as well, Black Clouds and Silver Linings.
Now, that's one of my... Yeah, I love that album. It's a bit more of a emotive album, isn't it? It's got a bit of emotion going on with that one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with that one.
Yeah.
A Nightmare to Remember, which is like a car accident or something at the beginning, if I recall.
Yeah.
And The Weird Story of the Count of Tuscany.
Yeah.
Which I
90
love.
minutes.
Yeah, the 20
great
minute.
song.
And
really good, yeah.
I kind of get the feeling that's based on... Is that based on a real event? It sounds like it could have been.
Yeah, I think it was inspired by John Petrucci's experience in Italy. I can't remember whether it was that he met the Count of Tuscany, or that it was that he went somewhere that was linked to the Count of Tuscany.
Wow.
Maybe a mansion or something. And from that experience comes a great track. I love that about music generally, when somebody has an experience and they are able to turn it into a song. In this case, a 19-minute one, but
I mean,
that's John Petrucci for you, isn't it?
I mean, the lyrics are so obscure that you're just like, this is not just plucked out of your imagination. And did that really happen? Because he's talking about going down to the cellar where the bodies of his family are and drinking wine with them. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. I can't remember that bit actually, but yeah, that probably is part of the story.
Something like that. It's I don't know, man. It's really weird. But then you go, like, as soon as like Black Clouds and Silver Linings, okay, Mike Portnoy's out of the band, and there's a whole reason behind that. But I mean, should we cover it quickly?
Go for it. Yeah.
So what is it? He joined Avenged Sevenfold because the Rev died. So he joined them for a tour. And the band were like, well, we're still going to put out an album whether you're in the band or not. And he's like, well, I'm going to want to tour with Avenged Sevenfold. No, I'm not going to rejoin the band. And they just said, all right, we'll get a new drummer. That's the short story of it. But, yeah, everything after that, yeah. I mean, it's a dramatic turn of events. It's
I'm a bit of devil's advocate with that one. I do like that album actually.
Yeah.
The albums I like less post Portnoy are probably The Astonishing and the self-titled one. Those two are kind of just a bit flat for me. Although, as I say, The Astonishing has some moments I don't mind, controversially. But the dramatic turn of events, I think it's got that opening track I really love. And now I can't remember the name of it.
On the Backs of Angels, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right, yep. Very good track.
And a couple of others on there as well. So, yeah, I quite like that one, but I can see why, it's not... I don't think it's as focused as the albums prior for me.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, and of course, like you said, people will say it's because Mike Portnoy left, which is probably not... I don't see it as that. I just don't... I think they might have been...
Maybe contributed to it a bit, but not the whole reason,
I can't see it's a main factor. Maybe they were just burnt out a little bit at the time and whatever. I think it's a really bad album title to be calling it a dramatic turn of events right after replacing your drummer.
We're gonna make it the album title. That's kind of like what they're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. But even, I mean, like, their most recent effort is probably their best return to form, I feel. A View from the Top of the World.
That's pretty good, yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good...
The Alien, Answering the Call, A View from the Top, the self-titled track, of course. There's just a lot of tracks there. Like, this is the first time when I was listening to this album, preparing for my review on it. And I'm like, this is actually the Dream Theater that I know and I love. It's like they're in that groove. They're back to it, and they're...
Yeah, I think I I like View from the Top of the World. I love Distance Over Time as well, personally. I don't know what you think about Distance Over Time, but yeah, I enjoy that album a lot. It's a bit more. It's a short album really for them, and it's shorter songs, um, but I just think they really like make a point quickly instead of jamming around for 10 minutes and then coming back to a particular theme or something. So yeah.
I don't think I've listened to Distance Over Time. Actually, I just realised
Oh,
they overshadowed it.
okay.
I
Well,
didn't know
yeah,
about that one.
yeah. Well, check it out. Yeah, I think it's a really good album.
Okay.
It's a bit more. Um, I kind of want to say it's a little like one of their '90s albums in a way, which is why I think it
That's
got a
cool.
lot of acclaim. It got quite a lot of positive reception when it came out. I think there's great tracks on there. Pale Blue Dot, Barstool Warrior. Great song, Barstool Warrior. Amazing song.
Actually, I think I did play Barstool Warrior. I think I heard it somewhere,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a good track there. So yeah, 3 big progressive metal bands amongst the mix. I hope this one is as painful as it is for you as it was for me. Because,
Yeah.
damn.
Okay.
So, out of the 3 bands here, we had Dream Theater, Opeth, and Porcupine Tree. Tom, I throw it over to you.
Ugh, yeah, this is very difficult. I feel like I'm gonna have to make my mind up very quickly because as we've been talking, I've been thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to make a decision, aren't I?
We can't, but
This is
we're
pretty
doing
nasty
it.
because
It'll be a whole Dream Theater album later.
yeah, yeah. I mean, each 3 bands have their real merits to them in the way that I think Dream Theater sets sort of a marker down in a way. Porcupine Tree, the bands I particularly love. But haven't seen live. And then you've got Opeth, who another band I really love, with a pretty extensive, pretty impressive catalogue. Oh God, yeah, this is really tough. Because I do love Dream Theater as well. So this is, yeah. Okay. I think I'm going to say Opeth to listen to.
Ooh, okay.
Possibly a little bit surprising in a way, but I think they out of all 3 bands, their music struck me the hardest. I think when I kind of have listened to them and first listened to them as well,
Yeah.
they really made a strong impact. Whereas when I first listened to Porcupine Tree, even when I first listened to Dream Theater, there wasn't the same kind of a reaction from me to their music. As much as I enjoyed them and as much as I love lots of their albums, so why am I doing this anyway? But Opeth, I think there are so many albums from Opeth that I would not hesitate to listen to. Even their prog rock era, where I'm slightly less maybe into it by taste, just taste alone, but even stuff like, you know, we've talked about Heritage and In Cod of Venenum, and their 2014 name has gone for me, the album Pale Communion. That's a great little album from Opeth as well. So I think because of the extent of the Opeth discography and their impact on me, they are gonna just about be to listen to. Now this is where yeah, erasing either Porcupine Tree or Dream Theater. Yeah.
See, this is a hard one.
I think prog metal will the community will either way. The community is going to come after me. It's just like an impossible position because if I'd erased Opeth or Porcupine Tree or Dream Theater, they're all such big bands in the genre.
It's Damascus Sword or whatever, isn't it?
One fan base is going to be right. Green Man, you're on my hate list now. So yeah, okay. I think I've made my mind up though. Because I haven't seen them live and because I think they would be incredible live, I'm going to say Porcupine Tree, which means I am erasing Dream Theater, and that does mean erasing their albums as well, doesn't it?
Yep.
Oh man, that's really sad. That's sad that means that the likes of Metropolis Part 2.
Oh my god, that's like the... Oh my gosh, when you're thinking about it, one of the best progressive metal albums.
But I think the reason that I've decided that is because there are more Dream Theater albums that I feel a bit more lukewarm to than the other two bands.
Yeah.
That's the issue for me. I mean, I could change my mind tomorrow on this one a little bit, but I think as important a band as Dream Theater are, if it's my decision and it comes down to me alone, they're getting erased.
Man, that's a tough one to call out to, but
Yeah,
we've got our reasons at the end of the day,
yeah,
people. Like,
yeah.
and they're pretty good reasons, you know. When it comes to these three bands, and I mean, geez, when it comes to progressive metal, could you name any three bigger giants in the field?
Yeah, juggernauts. You've named
Yeah,
juggernauts.
these guys, wow. I straight up would erase Opeth.
Ah,
Yeah. It, dun dun
big take
dun.
breath there. My goodness. All right, fair enough.
It,
Yeah,
it does boil down to a bit of a simple choice, though. Opeth was the last one out of these three.
yeah. I see. Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I'm still not into the extreme metal side of it.
Okay.
I am halfway across there, people. I am listening to black metal these days. I am dipping my toe into that field and enjoying it. I think I'm just still a little while off thoroughly enjoying it, you know? So until then, Opeth is this band that has some cool songs. Albums as a whole, that's a different story. So, unfortunately, Opeth out of the picture, erased. Which leaves two extremely difficult choices to make. And I think when I'm going to do is I would see Dream Theater live. Because they'll put on this like stupidly long 3.5 hour concert and they'll play the hits that you wanted to hear. They'll probably play Metropolis Part 2 in full, and then they'll play these other songs from
That's
away.
true, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, like you go through any of the like Live in Budokan. What's that? 3 hour concert? Yeah, yeah. Any of those albums, you'll see it, but they'll play all the tracks you want to hear, and they'll leave out a lot of the crap. I don't know when it comes down to when I would see them. That's a hard one. Maybe around the 2006 era, somewhere just around Systematic Chaos.
It'll be a good time. Yeah, yeah.
Although that would rule out Black Clouds. Oh, dear. That makes it difficult. And, of course, at the end of the day, I'd be listening to Porcupine Tree forever. And I wouldn't regret it. I mean, I've seen Porcupine Tree live, as I mentioned before. Very, very cool. If I'm being a little bit honest, though, they're okay. It was for oh dear, what's the name of that album? The concept piece that it was like 12 tracks just after Fear of Blank Planet. No, sorry, the one after that. The one with Time Flies on it.
The Incident?
Sorry? The Incident, yes, that's
Incident?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were touring for The Incident, and they played The Incident in full. And, it's a good album. It's just not really one of their strongest. You know, Time Flies was a cool track, and I loved the long version, but hearing the other 55 minutes worth of it can be a bit much. Especially when you're leaving out Fear of Blank Planet, all these other ones and stuff like that. So I was a bit let down by that. But hey, hopefully we can get to see them live this time around because, you know, I mean, what is it? They're doing their last tour, I think, in preparation for Closure and Continuum. But I can't see them because I said listen. Oh, man. But yeah, I'll definitely listen to Porcupine Tree for the rest of my life. So, damn. Some hard decisions had to be made there, Tom. And
Yeah.
I think we got there in the end.
I think that was harder than mine. I think that was actually harder than my one in episode A. Yeah.
I think there was a lot to talk about and a lot to unpack. And the worst part is when you just caught on the back foot and you're like, oh dear, he just said that band.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well,
I'm conscious a lot of my subscribers are Dream Theater fans, so this is going to be a problem.
I'm just gonna link like every video you do now for Dream Theater, and I'll be like, little 5-second gap. I will erase Dream Theater.
Yeah. I will see you subs. Nice knowing.
Oh man, people of my crew, make sure to go over to Tom and put those numbers back up.
Yeah.
He likes Opeth, people. Go to him. Oh man. Okay, so once again, people, thank you for checking out this episode of Live Listen Erased in regards to the podcast. Once again, it's been a pleasure being joined by Tom from The Green Man. Check out his channel, people. Check it out. He does lots of content in regards to music reviews, book reviews, movies, and all that stuff. So make sure to check it out. His details will be in the bottom of this YouTube video. Tom, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Look forward to the to the reaction.
To the fallout.
Yeah, the fallout. Yeah.
Alright, people. Catch you later. Stay spicy. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Live Listen Erased. And if you have enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it with all your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our Chili Con Carnage crew so you can get notified for all the future videos that we put out, as we put out videos every Friday. Also, we are on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter over at Live Listen Erased, so make sure to tune in over there. And don't forget to like this video so that our manager can stay very happy.